Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Today, we're going to continue to discover the magic of the other world. And this is our unit about literature for the month of May. We're talking about a featured novel written by a young lady from here in Taiwan. And, of course, she learned English at home. English is not her native language, so it's quite an accomplishment for her to have written this book entirely in English. And it's actually listed in Amazon.com, so it's out there, and maybe it will be made into a movie someday.
Yeah, it's really impressive. In fact, a couple of the reviews I read online when I was preparing for this mentioned how they enjoyed her writing style. So good for her. That's hard to do. It was also mentioned that it's very creative and original. So, as you know, from day one, we started out with our focus on 4 girls. 2 grew up in an orphanage and are not good friends, shall we say. That's Alexandria. She's the lead. Daphne is her foster sister, and they don't like each other. And then Alexandria has 2 friends, Eileen and Clarissa. And when we last left you, they were just going to school. It was a normal day for them. But when they arrived at the school courtyard, they couldn't see anybody else. There were no other students, which was weird, and it had this strange feeling going on. Now, in the fountain there in the courtyard, you know what a fountain is. It's a water fountain, and the water kind of sprays up in the air. It's kind of nice. All of a sudden, this dragon-like zombie emerged from the water, grabbed all 4 of them, and dragged them into the water, hopefully not to kill them. That's when we left you.
Yeah, they're going into another dimension, which is called the other world. And then, of course, Alexandria meets her former parents, the king and queen, or at least...
I think they're still her parents.
Okay, right. The king and queen, and they gave her up for adoption when she was young.
Yeah.
And, of course, Alexandria is stunned about that, but she's also furious. But why did you do that? She asked them. And then the king and queen have to explain what's happening. There's another darker kingdom called the underworld, and there's some foul siblings there. Alta and Alto, they want to conquer the other world, and they were going to get to the other world through Alexandria, so that's probably the reason why the king and queen gave her up for adoption.
Yeah, they wanted to protect her.
Indeed, but now it's time for Alexandria to come back and claim her rightful title, and now she's going to defend the other world from these 2 terrible people, Alta and Alto, who come from the underworld. So let's find out what happens next. Let's read through today's lesson. We'll finish our summary, and we'll also talk about the author herself.
Alexandria, Daphne, Eileen, and Clarissa are told of 4 creators, magical humans who fashioned the other world out of fire, water, nature, and sky. Reflecting on the extraordinary elemental abilities they each possess, the girls are revealed to be the creators' heirs. Armed with magical weapons and accompanied by their teachers and otherworld elders, Helen and Zach, they are tasked with disrupting Alta and Alto's scheme to spread evil among the realms. Journeying into the obscure, ever-changing underworld, the party travels toward the palace of the wicked siblings. Along the way, they battle the cunning and cruel creatures that inhabit this unfamiliar world. But they also discover allies and friends. One is Eric, Alta's teenage son, who swears an oath of loyalty to the other world after fleeing his heartless mother's abuse. It soon becomes apparent, though, that the young warrior's greatest enemy may not be the evil siblings, but something hidden deep within themselves. Can they overcome their own darker natures? The debut novel of young Taiwanese author Hermione Lee, In the Name of the Otherworld, takes readers on a vivid high fantasy adventure. Lee found her love of writing while still in elementary school and refined her craft by writing numerous short stories. In December 2021, her short story, The Enchanters, the Fairy and the Beast, earned her an honorable mention in the Global Writers of the Future competition. Balancing her time between school and writing, Lee completed the second and third parts of the Otherworld series, Marvels of the Underworld and War of the Chaotic Worlds 1 and 2, during 2021's COVID-19 lockdowns. The entire trilogy will be available later this year for fantasy lovers to enjoy.
All right, everybody, it's time for us to discuss the contents of today's lesson. We're going to continue talking about the book In the Name of the Other World, and we're going to discover the magic of the other world. So here we are in the book here where we left off. We've got Alexander, Daphne, Eileen, and Clarissa in another dimension. They're now in the other world, and they are talking to the king and queen, and the king and queen just explained why Alexandria was adopted when she was so young and taken to the real world. Well, now she's going to claim her rightful place as princess of the other world. So Alexandria, Daphne, Eileen, and Clarissa are told of 4 creators, magical humans who fashioned the other world out of fire, water, nature, and sky. So we've got some magical spirits here who created the other world. And, of course, they're magical humans. They are called the creators. And each of them represents different elements here, fire, water, nature, and sky. And they all combined to create the other world.
Oh, so it sounds like our author is also putting some parts of traditional Chinese belief in her books, which most authors do. You write about what you know. It says here that they are, I guess, these magical humans. It's kind of cool. I don't think they knew who they were before this. So they're told of 4 creators, like Tom said, who created or fashioned, that just means created, the other world out of fire, water, nature, and sky, reflecting on the extraordinary elemental abilities they each possess. The girls are revealed to be the creator's heirs. If you're an heir of somebody, you are... Typically, you're a child or a grandchild of someone who's passed away, but sometimes people will leave their earthly possessions to someone that they love who isn't a family member when they pass on. So here, it just means that they have been given these gifts that the creators had themselves. So if you possess something, it just means you have that thing. You could have a lot of possessions. That's a noun form of this verb to possess. And these girls sound like they now have some really cool abilities. Elemental. The elements, when you talk about the elements of earth, you're just talking about the physical parts of earth that we have, the water, the sky, the earth, the soil, things like that. Those are elemental. And it sounds like they have the same kind of abilities as the creators had, who actually fashioned the other world out of things like fire, water, nature, and sky.
Yep, we've got 4 creators. So creator number 1 is with fire. Creator number 2 is with water. Number 3 is with nature. And number 4 is with sky. They've got these extraordinary elemental abilities. They possess those abilities, and the girls will be their heirs. So when those creators get old and die, then the girls will take their place, and they'll have those elemental abilities as well. Now, armed with magical weapons and accompanied by their teachers and otherworld elders Helen and Zach, they are tasked with disrupting Alta and Alto's scheme to spread evil among the realms. So now the fight is going to begin. They are armed with magical weapons. They have these weapons that they can use, and they're magical, like magical wands and things like that, or I should say magic wands, or other special weapons. And, of course, they're accompanied by some other people who are going to help them. We've got the elders whose names are Helen and Zach, and they have the responsibility of disrupting Alta and Alto's scheme of kind of breaking up their idea to spread evil among the realms. Basically, all these people are working together to stop these foul spirits, alta and alto.
Yeah, if you disrupt someone from doing something, you stop them from doing something. Maybe you're studying for a test and you keep being disrupted by the noise that's going on around you. Maybe your brothers and sisters are playing and they're too loud. Or maybe you're in the library and you're disrupted by a fire alarm or something that goes off. Well, they want to disrupt Alta and Alto's scheme, their evil plan to spread evil among the realms. If you're tasked with something, it just means someone's giving you some work to do. So that's what they're tasked with. Remember, they were surprised to see that they recognized some of these elders that approached them. And it sounds like Helen and Zach might be a couple of the teachers from their school that they didn't know were actually serving another purpose in the other world. Moving on to paragraph 2. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, here it says, journeying into the obscure, ever-changing underworld, the party travels toward the palace of the wicked siblings. And I believe the siblings, again, are Alta and Alto. So here, it's interesting to see that the word journey is being used as a verb. It's usually a noun. I'm going on a journey to the magical kingdom or whatever. But here, journey is being used as a verb. It just means they're having a journey. They're traveling into this obscure place. It's obscure, which means it's very unusual and it's out of the way. It's hard to see. It's hard to get to. And it's always changing. It's ever changing. It keeps changing its characteristics, so it's difficult to figure out. And the party, or this group of people, travels toward the palace of the wicked sibling. So again, we've got the 4 girls who are heirs to the creators, and then we've got some elders, Helen and Zach. So we've got 6 people journeying to find those bad apples. They're not really apples, but I'm using that term to refer to bad people.
Yeah, that's slang. If you're a bad apple or a bad cookie, bad apple, you're just a bad person. Yeah, one bad apple don't spoil the whole gang girl or whatever was that?
The whole bunch. That's
whole
an old
bunch
song
girl.
by the Osmond Brothers. You should know that, you know.
So you could have a big group of apples, and if you have one bad apple, it doesn't wreck the rest of them. So anyway, that's where Tom's getting the bad apple from. So they are going into an obscure meaning unknown, ever-changing. It changes a lot, underworld. And the party, it's not a party that you have where you invite friends over and you eat and dance and stuff. This just means the group. If you go to a restaurant in America, they'll say, party of 5. Party of 5 just means the group of 5 that had a reservation. It's your turn. You can be seated now. Brown, party of 5. They'll say your last name and then party. So this party or this group travels toward the palace of those wicked siblings. Along the way, they battle the cunning and cruel creatures that inhabit or live in this unfamiliar world. So if you're cunning, you're very smart, you're clever. I think it's a word we use when someone is smart in a way that sometimes is evil or hurts other people, or they get what they want through some sort of lying or cheating or deceit. So cunning isn't always a compliment if you say someone's cunning. Usually someone who's cunning is trying to trick somebody else out of something. So they're cunning and cruel creatures that live in the underworld, but they also discover or run into some allies. An ally is somebody who fights on your side to defeat a common enemy. In World War II, America and the UK, we were allies. We were fighting against the Nazis together. So who are their allies and friends? Well, one is Eric. And Eric happens to be Alta's teenage son. Now, remember, Alta's one of the wicked siblings. She's a bad person. But Eric, her son, turns out to be a really good guy. He swears an oath or promises that he will be loyal to the other world after fleeing his heartless mother's abuse. So if you make an oath or swear an oath, it's a very, very serious promise that you can't break. And loyalty just means you are true to the people that you say you're friends with, or maybe you're loyal to your country. Loyalty to your friends, your family, and your country is very important.
Indeed. So, hey, that could happen if you're cruel to your children. They might fight against you in the future.
Yeah.
And I think it's about time for us to take a little bit of a break right now. So let's do that. And we'll continue talking about this story in just a couple of seconds.
听众朋友大家好，我们昨天开始带大家到异界 The other world。 好，有4个主角，不晓得大家还知不知道，一个叫做 Alexandra， 一个是 Daphne 是 Alexandra 的姐姐，另外呢 Alexandra 有2个很好的同学，叫做 Eileen 跟 Clarissa。 好，那么今天呢，我们看一下这4位主角在有一天去学校的时候被拉到水池里面，然后进入了所谓的异界。那后来故事怎么样的发展呢？今天开始看到第一段的第1句，很特别，因为他们4个人后来被告知，其实有4位创世者。这4位创世者呢，就是一种魔幻的人类。他们做了什么呢？他们用火、水、大自然跟天空塑造了异界。那么在第一段第1句这个地方，其实有限定用法的关系子句，先行词是 magical humans， 但其实 magical humans 是逗点之前 four creators 的同位语，也就是说4个创世者，也就是这4个魔幻人类互到句尾左右括号起来，就是限定用法关系子句。我们刚刚说的，用火、水、大自然跟天空塑造出的 the other world。那后来啊，4位女主角就想起说，她们其实自己都有一些非凡能力耶，而且她们自己知道自己就是所谓的这4个 creators 的继承人。那么一定要看一下这一句，就是第1段第2句的地方，它也是个分词构句。分在哪里呢？前面的 reflecting这个现在分词，其实它本来应该有个连接词，有个句子在，也就是还原成为 when they reflect on something。reflect on 就是反省回想的意思嘛。那么句子本来应该有一个 when， 当他们想想他们自己本来就有一些特殊能力的时候，他们突然发现其实自己是继承人呢。好，我们第一步先把 when 删掉，reflect 变成 reflecting。 那 they 这个主词呢，其实就是逗点之后的 the girls， 所以主词也删掉，变成句子就是一个分词构句。想一想 reflecting on something， 那么还不要走开哦，因为后面的 the extraordinary elemental abilities 它其实是一个先行词，后面的 they 到句点之前的 possess 是 which 或 that 关系词省略的一个限定用法关系子句。好，第一段的第3句还是很重要，因为我们又看到一个分词构句。怎么分？我们看到一个过去分词 armed。 那么这里的 armed 是什么的省略呢？我们知道 be armed with 就是配有什么样的装备或者是武器的意思。假设我们真的要还原的话，当然前面一定会出现 be 动词。那主词是谁呢？主词一定是逗点之后的 they， 也就是这4个主角。 They are armed with， 可是其实根据文意啊，它没有什么特别表示时间、原因、条件或者是让步，所以我们这样判断的话，应该是 that 后面这个逗点之后的 and 的所谓的省略。所以其实它只是把2种状况放在一起，身上配有什么样的武器，然后呢他们就要去破坏 Alta 跟 Alto， 要在2座王国传播邪恶计划的这个任务。好，所以一行人就这样开始出发啦，他们就踏入漆黑千变万化的这个暗域，然后前往邪恶姐弟的宫殿。不过我们在第2段的第1句又看到分词构句，分哪里？分第1个字叫做 journey in。Journey into， 如果 journey 当动词，当然就有开始旅程的意思。那么根据上下文判断，本来应该是 when they journey into the obscure ever-changing underworld。 我们如果把 when 删掉， journey 改成动词 ing， 主词的 they 跟逗点之后的 the party 是一样的，所以 the party 指的就是这4个主角，就是 they， 所以 they 也被省略掉了。所以后来呢，他们在一路上啊，就是有很多怪物出现啦，他们又作战啦，但同时也有发现一些盟友。这些盟友朋友啊，一个是 Eric。Alta 他的 teenage son， 他逃离了他的母亲的虐待之后，就宣誓要效忠异界。我们看一下第2段第3句，第3句逗点之后的 who 到句尾可以整个左右括号，它就是补充说明这个 Eric 到底是谁。所以先行词是 Alta's teenage son， 其实它也是逗点之前 Eric 的同位语。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back. Again, we've got this party of heroes journeying into the underworld. We've got Alexandria, Daphne, Eileen, and Clarissa. And, of course, we've got some elders along with them, Helen and Zach. So the 6 people are traveling through the underworld, and they come across some cruel creatures. They have to fight them. They have to battle them. They're cunning and cruel. And then later on, they meet Eric, who actually is Alta's teenage son. Alta is one of the evil people in this realm of the underworld. But Eric doesn't like Alta and Alto. He's going to swear an oath of loyalty to the other world because he fled his heartless mother's abuse. So his mother is heartless, cruel, savage, and his mother, of course, is not nice to him, so he ran away from home, you could say, and joined the other team. And, of course, he ran away from his mother's abuse, which means, of course, his mother was treating him badly. We can talk about child abuse, when parents abuse their children by saying mean things to them, by beating them, etc., etc. And abuse is the verb, abuse is the noun.
You probably heard a difference in pronunciation there with Tom saying those words. So the verb is abuse with a Z, and the noun is abuse with an S. Don't forget that. Now, it soon becomes apparent, or it's clear, though, that the young warrior's greatest enemy may not be the evil siblings, Alta and Alto, but something hidden deep within themselves. Can they overcome their own darker natures? Yeah, sometimes your greatest enemy is just yourself. Maybe you have set some really good goals for yourself, but you just waste too much time. You don't practice when you should. You go to a movie with friends instead, or you take another nap instead of doing some work and studying the way you should, or practicing your instrument. Sometimes we're our own worst enemy. You'll hear us say that a lot. So if something is apparent, it's very clear. It's not a mystery to you. You can see that something is true.
Right, so it could be an easy story to say that the party went and encountered Alta and Alto and fought them and they won. But we've got an interesting twist here because it becomes clear or apparent that, hey, their greatest enemy may be something inside of themselves.
Right.
And, well, we're going to ask this question. Can they overcome their own darker natures and win the battle of evil versus good? And that's why we're not going to tell you the ending because A, we don't really know ourselves, and B, we don't want to spoil it for you, and you might go out and buy this book yourself. Now, moving on now to the final paragraph here, it says, the debut novel of young Taiwanese author Hermione Lee, In the Name of the Other World, takes readers on a vivid high fantasy adventure. So this is her first novel. It's her debut novel. Here, debut is being used as an adjective. It just means her first novel. Debut could refer to the first work of any artist, the debut work of art by the artist, for example, the first work of art that this artist sold or presented to the public. And this is her first novel, her debut novel.
Sometimes we'll just use debut by itself, or we'll use it as a verb. Yeah, I'm debuting at Carnegie Hall next week. You should come and hear my concert. So a debut is the first time you perform in front of an audience, or maybe you have a novel or a CD that is being offered to the public for the first time they can buy it. This is really impressive because she wrote the book in English, which is really, really something to be proud of for her. So it takes readers on a vivid, high fantasy adventure. Remember, this is a fantasy book. You know that we have dragon-like zombies. Those aren't real, so we know it's fantasy. Lee found her love of writing while she was still in elementary school. Good for her, and refined or made her writing, her craft even better by writing numerous or a lot of short stories. We use craft to talk about something that involves a lot of skill in something that you do. Usually it's something you create. So it's a creative thing. A lot of actors or actresses will talk about their craft, when they're talking about how they act. But here her craft, of course, is writing. And in December 2021, She had a short story called The Enchanters, the Fairy, and the Beast, and she earned an honorable mention in the Global Writers of the Future competition. Another thing that was really good for writers out there, if you want to be well known or get some publicity, is to enter into all the competitions that you can, and that's what she did. She didn't win, but she did earn an honorable mention.
Right, so sometimes you see lists on the internet of the 10 top rock and roll bands or whatever. But if you do not make the top 10 list, but you're still pretty good, then you might get an honorable mention. You were considered for the top 10, but you were not as good as the other 10. So maybe she didn't win first place or second place or third place, but she got an honorable mention.
Good for her.
She was at least recognized as being pretty significant, and that was by this organization called the Global Writers of the Future, and that was their competition, which they had in 2021 in December. Now, balancing her time between school and writing, Lee completed the second and third parts of the Otherworld series. So there are 3 books in this series. The second one is Marvels of the Underworld, and then the third one is War of the Chaotic Worlds 1 and 2. So we've got 2 parts inside the third part, and she wrote those during 2021's COVID-19 lockdowns, which means people were restricted from going out. They had to stay home. They had to work at home, etc., etc. And yes, there have been COVID lockdowns all over the world.
Wow, instead of just wasting the time or playing video games, she actually wrote some novels, so good for her. We're going to find out she's really young. I bet some of our listeners are even older than she is. She wrote this book at 16, had it published when she was 16, so she's pretty impressive. So she completed the other 2 parts of this trilogy. A trilogy is a series of 3 novels that have the same characters, the main characters, and then the story just progresses through each book. We're going to be back to talk about this amazing young lady, Hermione Lee, in our next program. We hope you'll join us then. But now we've run out of time. We got to listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.
所以这一切就会变得明朗啦。总而言之呢，一定邪不胜正啦。可是其实故事没有这么简单，因为这些年轻战士们最大的敌人可能不是那个邪恶的姐弟，反而是他们内心深处的某一种东西哦。这就是这个小说啊好看的地方。好，可是我们还是要回过头看一下第2段第4句。第4句这里的 it， 它其实是一个虚主词 ，it soon becomes apparent。逗点之后的 though， 只要你看到 though 前面有打逗点，它一定就是副词 however 的意思。那我们刚刚说这个 it 是虚主词，真主词在哪里呢？真主词就在 though 逗点之后，从 that 一直到句尾的地方。你看这个主词这么长，我们当然要用一个虚主词来去替代它。那么当然，这个年轻的作家李修齐，这是他的首部的小说。这个年轻的女生李修齐，其实她在去年12月的时候，她的短篇故事就赢得了全球未来作家比赛的荣誉奖，而且重点是她的这个创作呢，都是用英文写的。然后我们今天看到这个奇幻世界的故事，就是在2021年新冠肺炎的这种封锁期间在学校的课业还有写作的时间取了平衡，才把2、3部都完成。我们明天会再多介绍一些有关于台湾青年作家李修齐的背景。我们明天见。
That's it, guys. Thanks for joining us. We have one more day to talk about the very impressive Hermione Lee, who is also Taiwanese. And we hope you'll join us for our 3rd program. This is our literature unit. And we got to sign off, Tom. So I'll sign off first. I'm Stephanie. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Tom. Thanks for joining us.
And come back soon.
Come back soon. Goodbye.